And this is Last Week of Epoch. And if you look on the screen here, we've got another special guest with us. We got him back again for a second time. My boy, my favorite CT, Quietforme. What's up, Quiet?
Not much. Couldn't have enough of me, eh?
Nah, always got to have you back, man. And
We
yes,
never
I
have
shaved
enough
my
quiet.
face. Sorry, guys. So,
I think
how's everything
the
going?
clean look is excellent. I love it. It's good.
Do you think I look better like this with the clean look instead of the stash?
Let's be honest.
I'm partial toward it.
He
Oh,
looks
okay.
like Deckard Cain. That's all I'm gonna say.
You're
So
not
how's
wrong,
everything been
actually.
going?
What was that, Squid?
I said he's not wrong. He does look like Deckard Cain. He really does.
Yeah. How's everything been going for you, though, Quiet?
It's been a rough past couple of weeks, but for the most part, we've been getting by.
Yeah. And Perry, you've got the thing pulled up, correct, sir?
Oh, are we gonna jump right into it?
Oh,
Yes.
we have to. I got
wanna
rants.
dive right
Well,
into
it's
this.
okay.
right now.
Okay. So just in case someone doesn't tune into every single podcast, can we give Quiet like a minute to say who he is, what he does, what a CT
Oh yeah,
is?
that's perfectly fine.
Oh, that is good. All right.
Yeah. That way somebody can jump into it a few minutes later and see what we're talking about. So Quiet,
Sorry.
go ahead and talk to everybody, tell everybody what it is that you do as a CT.
I basically tell EHG how to fix their shit before it gets to you guys, so that way it's in a better state than normal. Beyond that, I give feedback. I do basically what everybody does on a daily basis. It's just we get more or less a first look of it, so that way it's in a better state for you guys, and there's less of those hot fixes needed.
Awesome. And is there like a particular like system for doing that, or is it only through forums that you guys do that on?
It's basically like just how it is, right? Like we use Discord, we use forums, right? Like it's whatever is needed at the time.
Awesome.
Just in case anyone is like me and went through a phase of their life where they didn't know every single acronym, CT is community tester, right?
Correct.
So is anybody a community tester? Like, do you apply to a program or something, or like how does that work?
So how it first started out, they had the program and it was invite only. And then essentially if you were invited, you had to sign like a contract, NDA, say you're going to adhere to these rules and buy these stuff, blah, 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 political stuff and political stuff. And then you got invited in and then you basically, EHG tells you what to do. Basically, we're just unpaid interns. Really, that's all it really is. At the end of the day, it's a lot of work, and there's no benefit for it other than improving the game.
Do you play like whatever you want a patch early, or like do they tell you like specifically go play this? We want feedback on this one skill, this one mastery.
For the most part, they want specific feedback, but at the same time, they could also ask, what is your first impression kind of thing, right? Because first impressions are a big deal. Like you can see it on the forums every day and how they talk and how Mike talks on the dev stream. First impressions, themes, and how things look matter.
So I gotta ask this, talking about this just popped in my head. Do you have like a separate like GUI that you guys use, graphic user interface for being able to test stuff ahead of time? Is there like a different like interface system for that?
I mean, they had a public like test thing they did a while back where anyone was able to join and just test out like chat stuff and stuff like that. It's kind of just like that. It's just a different place where we play the game with stuff separate from live, basically.
But you have access to it directly, whereas like a regular player like myself wouldn't have access to it, right?
Right.
Awesome. And what's the process for going through the whole CT program? Like when you joined, like I know you said you had to sign a contract and everything, but afterwards did they like train you specifically on how they wanted you to do things, or was it just like
no,
try it out and give us feedback?
So this is like a huge misconception. They're not like training us or telling us to be like employees, so to speak, right? We're just people that they recognize in the community that have certain knowledge types or certain perspectives that they want to get more of a nitty-gritty like personal response from before it goes out to the general populace. So we just it's more of like we just hop on and do it and give feedback. Really, it's no different from what you guys do every day. It's just we do it earlier.
But you're not
Awesome.
allowed to like make videos or stream or anything, right? Like, does that conflict with you wanting to stream on Twitch?
Yes, it definitely does conflict because I have to watch what I say, right? There are times where I know things so ahead of time and you guys are like speculating, I just gotta sit there and be like, because I can't say shit because it's just how it is. It's very conflicting. Sometimes it's easier for me just to take a week off until a patch is out or something because it's just so hard to like go on, put on a show knowing what's to come and not want to accidentally slip up.
Like, I wonder what's gonna happen.
Yeah, and then it makes it even worse too, because like people come in your chat, they'll be bitching and moaning about something, and you know exactly what's being addressed about it, and you just can't tell them anything. So you're just like, just wait and see what patch brings. Just wait and see what patch brings. You're just, it's so hard. Like that, being a content creator, I love the talking, the diversity of the community, like being able to theory, lore hat, tinfoil. It's what I'm known for, ranting and tinfoiling for the most part. And not being able to do that because I know things is really hard.
Yeah. Cynical, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
I do have a question related to being a CT and then that being juxtaposed with you also playing the game on live. Do you ever find yourself playing a build that you know will be good before it's actually good?
No.
Okay.
As he takes a sip of his coffee.
For legal reasons, he
For
cannot
legal
confirm or
reasons.
deny whether or not that is the truth. So
For legal reasons, the answer is no. Understood. Understood.
That's like the druid, man. I can't wait for the next patch to come out. You're druid.
fine. All right, listen. I'll allow it. I wanted to like have the intro and talk to Quiet and find out who he is, but if you really want to get to the news post, I'll allow it. It's fine.
Yeah, let's get to the news post.
Oh man.
All
The
right,
news
so I've got it
really
pulled up
help
here.
me right now.
Quiet smile just went from a wide smile to a closed lip smile. Right now.
So, Quiet, you told us in a couple minutes leading up to this podcast here that you had a lot of things you wanted to rant about, right?
Yes.
So for what I know, you're like the Spriggan guy. You have a unique in the game right now, Legacy of the Quiet Forest, I think is what it's called,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So you got a belt in the game right now that allows you to be a Spriggan in like new and interesting ways to regenerate mana. You've been playing it for a long time. Your characters have like 8,000 life and deal 1 billion damage, and this is like the thing you do, right?
Yep.
So we have a news post that came out today from EHG regarding October development. They talked a little bit about multiplayer, a little bit about some upcoming stuff, which looks awesome. I'm just going to name drop the legendary items, Eternity Cache, first dungeon, crafting updates, new character models, like a lot of good stuff. But I think first things first is the Druid rework, which is like your baby.
Yeah, it's my baby.
Hit me with it. You got something
This
on
is-
your mind. Tell me about it.
This is the third rework. I've been actually calling for this rework for the past year and a half. Believe it or not, when I first started this game, it's March will be my 3-year anniversary with LE. So I've been at this for 2.5 years, and I spent the 2 years of it just on Druid. Out of my total like 6,000 hours, over 2,500 hours are on Quietforme alone, and over 3,000 hours are just on Druid. It is my everything with LE because it's my favorite class fantasy. It's my favorite everything. Now, Mike told me that they're going to have to address my unique belt regarding the Druid rework this go around, which had me on extreme edge because when I first implemented this belt, it was under the protection-based system. Before resistances were what they were, we had something called prots. Every 100 prot would be something like 0.5% DR. If you had 9,000 prots, you basically had effectively 99% DR to that specific element. So, and then back then there was no totem spam for mana. There was no mana regeneration of any type except Veil Blast returning the cost of Veil Blast on Spirit Cast. So I literally made the belt as a Band-Aid fix So we had a way to actually emphasize Quietforme in a permanent option because you couldn't before. Before, the actual strat was cap out your max mana using Orion's Eye and every conceivable notion. And by the time you got through that whole map, you better hope you didn't run out of mana. And that was the whole playstyle. So you actually had to guess how many totems, how many vines you needed to summon to kill each pack, and became a mathematics game. And that's what really got me into it. And I pushed 300 waves back in the day using this mathematics-based system, and it was fucking no one could play it back then. I was just basically madmaning it. So I made this item to make it more accessible for the everyday player to get into Spriggan. Then we went through the Resistance rework, the Druid tree undergone its first rework, where they actually redid the whole Mastery tree, and it was worse than the original iteration. And then they later on readjusted it to have hide skin amongst other node adjustments, which made Druid go from the least appealing mastery option to at least we have a goal with it now. It's the best defensive option, as long as you still take Boar, Berserker, Node, Earthing Strength. That if you take all of the basic stuff for Primeless, Druid was the better option.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Go ahead.
Just I want to make sure that we highlight stuff in case everyone else doesn't know what things are by name. So you mentioned hide skin. It's a node in Druid, right?
Yes,
So
hide skin basically.
it's just past the halfway mark. You need to be a Druid to do it. And what's it have on it? What's it say?
150 flat health and 10% of your max HP is applied to your endurance threshold. And that's for all the points invested into it. So it's a 10-point node. You need to put 10 points into it to get that HP and to get that endurance converted to your max HP. That is the only thing that made Druid appealing. Period. Quietforme's best build was Shaman before. It's even sad to admit, but if Werebear wasn't Druid locked as the mastery skill, no one would have played Druid Werebear. It would have been better to be Beastmaster, but because it's the Druid Mastery, it just, you were stuck. And most people who enjoyed Werebear before these changes with hide skin, you really only had two things you liked. You had the early pen and leech in the bottom of the tree, and then you had the global crit at the top to help do your crit swipes. And it was basically boring. You had one build for each thing, and you had no way to work around it. You had no real theory crafting. You were pigeonholed into these builds, and they were unfun. Not mention, you didn't have specialization options because you're locked into this bar of skills, and if you couldn't get on proc effects, you're basically becoming the pack master as a transformation main, because only companions were the only other viable source. So with the news post and all of these previous iterations of Druid just being bad, two things stood out to me. Mike told me on a dev stream that they're going to have to change one thing on my belt. I knew it was the mana stat. It's the only thing about that belt that is unique. You can get resistances, you can get armor anywhere else. And then, when reading the news posts, they said Druid and transformations are getting their own resource. And that is very interesting in terms of speculative design, because they also said in that same post they wanted to make permanent options easier to do. But on the flip side, I also know through dev streams that Mike has also said they want stance options, basically for people who are not aware what that means. It's a term where you're going in and out of multiple different forms. So you'd start at Spriggan, then you convert to Werebear, and you'd get different benefits for being in different forms. And so I feel like because these are the two playstyle choices they want people to make going into Druid, I feel we're going to see very big overarching changes to not just fundamental design, but to fundamental choice of design that the player is going to make, especially with the new resource management, because it's not going to play off mana, which is very interesting on how they're going to approach, because we don't have anything like that right now.
Interesting.
So we can all scratch our beards except for Grim.
Except for I don't have one.
All right.
Without NDA or anything like that, possibly changing the resource to maybe like energy, like an energy bar, maybe.
I don't know. Like, so if we go off other ARPG logic, right? Transformations are just a passive effect you get. Like, you turn into a monster, you get X passive effect, right?
Yeah.
But, like, EHG has been very careful. They wanted things balanced around mana. They're starting to, like, hybridize cooldowns as part of their balance and such. So the only thing, like, I could see them, like, going off is like, maybe they're taking some inspiration from Diablo 3. Unique classes have unique resources.
Yeah.
Might be tied to the individual transformation having each of their own unique resource.
Yeah, like monks have spirit in Diablo 3.
Yeah, so that's the only thing that makes sense to me, or sounds like that could be feasible.
I mean, they could do like cooldowns, right? Just like the whole thing cooldown gated.
Yeah, but that just feels bad. Because
Yeah.
that's ultimately what Werebear was before, was cooldown gated, and Spriggan was unironically cooldown gated without having cooldowns because it was mana management. You had to do your spam, then you had to sit there and just spam your totems over and over and over again to get your mana back, and that acted like an artificial cooldown. And that did not feel good. Now, I like the mana dump of summoning out 100 plus vines on Spriggan form and then recharging up my mana to repeat the same thing. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I understand that's not an appealing play style to the average person. So I don't think they would go cooldown approach, especially because like they also, if you, they don't like how limited we are in specialization. You can definitely tell that, because like, how we going to like get benefits of other skills if we're locked to these bars with cooldowns? It just makes no sense.
Yeah. Now, before you had mentioned that before you made the belt, getting the mana back was quite troublesome. Um, just a little bit. Could you explain to me like how the druid form would work when you ran out of mana? Because I didn't play druid back then. I hardly ever touched primalist. Primalist is like my worst class.
When you ran out of mana back in the day, you went back into human form. And back then, when you went back into human form, you lost over 40% DR. You lost all of your survivability, because when you went in to do the full permanent form option, you had all these extra benefits. Like Spriggan has a 400 flat armor tied within the tree. And this was before they added the 10 vitality to it, where the vitality gives 100 flat health at this point. And so, like, under the prop based system, you could use Orion's Eye to convert your void into fire, and then you could just stack elemental res. Your physical res at the time, which was the original physical resistance, was actually called armor, unironically. And then you had your necrotic, void, and poison. So by having Orion's Eye, it was best in slot for every single build back in the day with the props, because it just, one slot resistance was converted over, and it just gave you infinite gearing potential, because you just could stack everything into about 4 stats versus the like 6, 7, 8 you have to do now. And it just opened up so much for gearing. And you didn't even need to build damage back in the day, because you would run around and just be immortal.
Okay.
I hear concern about what the new druid system's going to be. Also with your belt, because like your belt was like the mana solution, and now they're going to make a new what do you call it? A new resource system altogether. So like you're not sure about the state of the belt that you put in the game. Give me something that like you're excited about. Like is there something about the druid rework that makes you happy? Is it like something that you want to play with, something you want to explore? Like what? Give me some good news here.
Good news? It's a rework. It's a rework I've been asking for fucking 2 years, for it to be addressed from a baseline level. It's finally happening. That is what I wanted. I'm really happy that it's finally being addressed, because it did not suit the theme of what Druid was. It was a complete miss in terms of choice design for mastery and skills. And just because we found a couple of things that we like doesn't mean that it is overall healthy for the mastery or the perspective of it. So I'm really happy that they're addressing the fundamental problems that Druid has always had. And I'm really happy they're adding a third transformation into this choice now, because it's going to fill a missing archetype we don't have, according to Mike, again, asked on DevStream, where he says, It's not going to overlap with Spriggan. It's not going to overlap with Werebear in terms of archetype. That means Spriggan is hybrid caster, but I'd consider it more minion focus on current states. Unless that's getting drastically changed, it's going to be hybrid caster. Werebear is melee bruiser. So to me, the third transformation has to fill the elemental archetype. It could either be full caster or it could be some sort of assassin-like style. And so I'm very interested in what that's going to bring to the new archetype for Druid, and if it's going to be synergistic with Shaman, because if you look at it from perspective of how the current forms are, you have like Spriggan with the totems and vines, which best represent through attunement scaling on Shaman, but there's no elemental built in with it because the poison also best benefits it from the Druid side. Then you have Werebear, which is just, you could go, if you had the option, you can go Beastmaster, or you can go Druid and just be tanky boy. So I think the missing archetype is going to be an elemental focused one that might synergize better with Shaman and bring some of that spell casting lightning vibes to the missing theme. But it could also go the other way. They could lock it above the 30-point investment, making it Druid only, leaving Spriggan the bottom 15 points and use that as the bridge gapper to other mastery options for transformation. So I don't know. There's so much potential that could be brought with that. I could also see them moving around skills within the tree, because like Eterra's Blessing that you get out of the base primal tree, that's indicative of the Druid theme. If you look at the base tree, you got Eterra's Blessing, Maelstrom, Sabertooth, and Serpent Strike. Maelstrom is Shaman, Sabertooth is Beastmaster, Serpent Strike is Filler Gap. So they each are like an introductory to their own mastery. So if we're bringing in a new transformation and we're going full into the theme of Druid is transformation with the themage of Eterra created the Druids in actual lore, so we could also see the base skills being adjusted to compensate for that, and that could just completely change out how we approach Primalist and Loveland, and that's also exciting because I feel Ruined Era Primalist is probably the worst experience for most people.
As someone who spent 3.5 hours today on stream playing that, yes,
you're Tempest Strike. That was your own fault.
Look. Without Tempest Strike, it's still not fun. Let's not act.
Hey, I could do it. I could do it in 40 minutes if I'm not Tempest Strike. So I don't know what you're complaining about.
That's fair.
You might be the most passionate primalist person I've heard from the Last Epoch community. Like me, I make most of my stream career out of making fun of the primalists. You're telling me the lore, like the crossover skills, the entry skills, the new player experience, the experienced player experience. Like, wow. I like it.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite character. Believe it or not, the very first character I ever made was a Void Knight. It was Sentinel. And back then, so fun little story about old school Erasing Strike. Old school Erasing Strike was so powerful, if you want to put a single pack of mob using the void beams on kill threshold, you would crash the game every time you hit a pack of mob because there were so many beams, the game couldn't process what was happening and it would just shut down. And that's what made me play Primalist, because I was just like, well, the skill I want to play, I can't.
So, all right, we'll pick Primalist since that doesn't crash my game. All right.
Right.
Which, like, you mentioned that your first character was a Void Knight. I believe you said this on stream. Wasn't that your initial class you had in mind for your gloves? Because you also do have another item, not just the Spriggan belt.
Yes, Ravenous Void. I did do the themage. I did do a lot of the stuff in mind to Void theme, and I wanted it to best represent by Void Knight because it's my favorite mastery in terms of theme, and it's always been really interesting because of the theme. So I did Ravenous Void to best represent that theme, but at the same time, I wanted it to be generic enough everybody could benefit for.
Well, mission accomplished on that one.
Yeah, pretty flippin' generic on your pair of gloves there. I remember you showed me the Google document, like the working doc, when you were still like pitching the idea to the devs, and I just laughed at you.
I hadn't even pitched it to the devs yet.
The document you showed me was like you wanted a pair of gloves in Last Epoch that had like 1% reduced damage taken per 100 life. or something like that. And I was like, this is so stupid.
That is
It was
actually
so strong.
that was actually my game plan. If I could get everyone in the community to unanimously agree that's BS, but I could get the idea of I wanted HP stacking to benefit and bring a tankiness element because I wanted it to best represent HP stackers. HP stacking is really fun in this game right now. It's the core component. Until Ward gets good, HP is the way to go for me. And so I wanted to embellish that. I know everybody can use HP. It was just going to be good for everybody. And so I was going in with this concept, okay, if I can make the most busted thing ever, and I sat down with Foe and Lone Star in private, and we worked on this originally, just to make the most BS thing possible, and just to get feedback, because I was using that essentially as an entry level survey for me to see how people react to the concept of it. And then I took all the feedback I took from everybody and came down to EHG and I'm saying, look, these are the points I want to hit. Here's a core concept idea. I know it's busted. You're probably going to say no. So work with me on reaching these points because I wanted it to be Chase. So it was my way of getting inherent feedback on what makes Chase appealing without you guys realizing it. And then worked with EHG on a very fine. We spent a month going back and forth just to get to this current idea.
How do you think the finished product of Ravenous Void delivered on what you were trying to get at? Do you think it hit the mark? Did the devs do a good job? Like, do you like the item? Do you wish it were different?
No, I'm infinitely more happy. Like, I have no regrets with Ravenous Void. I had regrets with the belt. So I'm very happy with the gloves where they ended up.
Gloves were really good. What's next on the list there, Perry, for the thing?
Oh, of the news post that we got today?
Yeah.
Sure. I'll scroll back up here. But I do want to say I've got this one GIF running in the background, and I just keep looking at it because it makes me so happy. So India, it's just like there's some things that just like make you feel so good about a game. Something that comes to mind about like Path of Exile is like a game that I've played in the past a lot. There was like this like sound effect that played whenever you use Exsanguinate, and it's just like this like squishy blood feeling, and it's just like it's so good, man. So I've got this GIF pulled up over here, and it's the rework. It's a gameplay rework of Werebear form, and honestly, I don't even know what Werebear form looks like right now. It's it's a Primalist build, you know. It's off in the ether, in a place that I don't pay attention to. But this reworked Werebear form looks so flipping good. This is like, it makes me want to play the game. This is like exactly the kind of stuff that EHG should be looking for. Have you all seen this?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
Have you seen the GIF?
I've also literally just been watching it on repeat the entire time as well.
Yeah, me too. It's great.
It is.
This guy is beefy.
Okay, let's be honest. You know what the most satisfying thing about that gift is? When he's on all four and his eyes are glowing red.
Yes.
Oh.
God, yeah, it looks so good.
I'm gonna have to check it out after this.
It looks so good.
Please
But
do.
Perry, you haven't seen the current Werebear. Look, just don't. Okay, you've already seen this one, so don't.
Okay. Squid is actually over embellishing. It's honestly, it's not bad. The current Werebear does not look bad. Kurt Spriggan looks like a fucking driftwood out of nowhere, and it honestly is bad compared to the new one. But I will stand by the fact I am going to miss it because I have spent so much time with it. So for me, it's like saying goodbye to my best friend kind of thing. I'm going to miss Legacy Group. But the new Spriggan is like, dude went to the gym, you know? You know he's coming out. He's like, got the abs. He's like, yeah, I'm going to get the honeys. I know it. And that's what happened to Werebear. He's like, he was already, like, he had the dad bod. And he's like, you know what? I'm tired of being the dad. Let me actually go and be fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger.
He looks so thick. I love it.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
All right. Here, let me give you the next topic. All right. This is something that I talk about most days when I'm streaming. I say that the crafting in Last Epoch is fun and rewarding, and I repeat that to myself 3 times every time that I get shafted by crafting. It's like the crafting system is fun and rewarding. The crafting system is fun. Oh god, the crafting system is fun and rewarding. And I break so many items. I just like the emotional investment that I have in crafting items is out the window, right? So when you're new to Last Epoch, you look at the crafting system and you're like, oh boy, if I want to put a stat on an item, I can just put a stat on an item. But like the crafting system Last Epoch is not beyond critique. In fact, there's a lot of critique about it. For example, if you find a if you finally found an item that has a tier 7 modifier on a good base that you want to use, but it's got 3 other garbage stats, there is an overwhelming possibility that it's completely unusable. You cannot use that item. All right, so it's one paragraph. Should I just read this to you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so let's see what crafting update is. This is from the update that was released today. They said crafting Last Epoch is one of our fan favorite systems, so when we update it, we want to be careful not to change what players like. However, we feel that there are some issues with the current system. For example, the random factor and fracturing items can lead to quote unquote feel bad and frustrating moments. So in 084, which we don't know when this is coming out, I guess, but in 084, crafting will get major changes. It will still be deterministic, it will still involve shards to augment stuff, and we will still keep an element of randomization. However, the randomization will no longer come in the form of an item suddenly fracturing. I'm excited. It sounds like I get to use items when I find them. I don't know what this means. What do you think?
Okay, so when people say crafting's the fan favorite, Ichi is like subtly jabbing at me because I am like the bounty hunter to crafting. I am the most wanted supervillain. I cannot stand it. I think it is fundamentally the worst design system in the entire game.
Really?
Yes, I could actually go over every aspect of why it's just bad in every way. Starts with.
I'm waiting. Yeah, give me.
It starts with Rune of Shattereds. The most basic thing. You find a rare affix. Unless it's the only affix on the item, you're guaranteed nothing. Get lucky. One bad negative just trying to collect shit. But honestly, that's probably the one I have the least gripe with.
So that's like if you have 4 modifiers on an item, you're guaranteed a shard. You're guaranteed at least 1 shard whenever you shard something. But it could be anything. It could be any number of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Second, we got Rune and Refinement, which to me is the most balanced rune. It just rerolls, adds a little stability. I'm fine with that. Move that over to the side. Rune Removal. So not only do you have the drawback of potentially risking a stat you want to keep, but it adds instability for the next fucking craft you do. So you have a double inherency negative to just wanting to attempt to get something off to make the item even possibly usable. And when it does remove that one bad item, well, it just goes in the bin anyway. So it's like, why have the instability when you already have that first tier of drawback? It's just double negative for no reason. It's bad. It just get rid of the instability on it. Just leave it as rune removal with the initial negative drawback of it could just hit the thing you want to keep. That's just good enough. There's no reason to put salt in the wound and then put a little lemon squirt on top.
Not bad. I don't mind this so far.
Rune of Cleansing, the most garbage rune they have ever created. It is worth 200 gold for a reason, because that's the only value it has. So we have items that drop with instability already on it, and if you find a base where you want to use a Rune of Cleansing, it's only going to remove anywhere between 5 to 15. Well, it is quite common to find a good base, but it already has 17 plus instability on it, and so when you use this Rune of Cleansing to completely reset it down to a white item in order to even attempt to craft on it, you're already at a drawback of never being able to guarantee starting at 100% on that first craft, making white items completely unusable and undesirable. Throw it in the bin. Just, if you're going to keep Rune of Cleansing, make it so when you reset the item to white, also reset instability to 0. Don't try to add this arbitrary number negative built into the Rune of Cleansing just because you want instability on dropped items to stay relevant when you're resetting it to be worthless, essentially. Worth 200 gold. Just sell it to a vendor. That's all it's good for. Rune of Shaping. 2 inherent drawbacks. One adds instability. I think it was like Root Refinement where it only adds stability, it'd be fine. But no, it also says in the description it will weight the roll to be more in the middle. Why do you use Root of Shaping? Because you want to get a roll to be as high as possible, not to be average as possible. So if I have a big roll range or double implicit stats, like let's say a bone amulet, which can roll anywhere between 15 to like 40 on a res, and you got two of those stats, and you're hitting runic shaping 3 times, it's already a bricked item if you don't get it above to where your threshold needed to be. So runic shaping is a rare rune that has 2 inherent drawbacks built in before you even hit the craft button. Bad.
Interesting assessment.
The system is so binary. You have to do everything in a certain order, a certain way, and there's no player choice involved. I don't care what anyone says. The only player choice is what stat do I want on it. After that, you can use Guardian Glyphs above 80% to guarantee your option, but the second that Guardian no longer makes it 100% into 99, it's completely at the whim of the crafting system. You have no player control after you use a glyph of the Guardian. So you're sitting there, and people say, but you do have a choice. Well, if you think about it from this regard, it's binary. Your choice is either do the craft or don't. So you're basically telling me don't use the crafting system, which you can do. The game's not hard enough. You could easily get through non-empowerment and even empowerment to a degree using only tier 5s and tier 10s, but it's not going to be fun. The crafting system is perfectly fine when you're trying to make tier 5s and tier 10s, but it's not designed in any capacity where you as a player, if you want to invest time on a character for mid-game or end-game crafts, the system is not there to work with you. It's working actively against you in double and sometimes triple negative effects before you even hit the button. It is not good. It works against the player, not for the player, and that's why I like other crafting systems and other ARPGs, because they are working for the player, and you have choice where you could be like, okay, for example, a PoE, you could print the item, make it back up, so if you screw up, you at least have a spot where you could go back to and try again and make the choice: do I want to spend the time to resource to do this all again, or am I just going to go play the game for a bit, cool off, do something else, right? But in this system, you don't have a choice. Your choice is either engage and craft and hope you get lucky, or don't. And I think that is poor. I do not like binary choices. I want to feel like I screwed up the crafting system, not a random loot box number generator.
Gotcha. I think I remember not too long ago I was in one of the dev streams, and I think Mike was talking about one of the changes they were wanting to do with crafting was maybe instead of fracturing the item, instead of the item fracturing, instead maybe you lose the shard. Like if you try to craft on there, the shard will disappear and it'll put instability on the item more that way, lowering your chance to get the craft on there.
Will just come out and say I like the fracturing. I think the fracturing part of the system is the only part I like because it's actually interesting. It's something different, a different approach to giving a player a negative drawback. What I want to see is EHG give us more ways to try and mitigate the percentages before a fracture is bound to happen. Mike has said it. If you land 2 80% crafts in a row successfully, that's actually statistically a 50% chance to actually happen. We need ways other than Glyphs of the Guardians to actually augment those choices to give us better crafts later. I would love to see something like, for example, a rune of removal that actively will not hit my Exalt mod. So that way I know for a fact if I use this rune of removal, I'm going to keep my Exalt mod and I'm going to hit something else and I can make that choice. But if I don't want to wait until I get that resource, I could gamble it with just a regular rune removal and put that mod at risk. I want to see more resources that give us a choice on how we want to approach the craft. I don't want to take away the fracturing portion of the system. I think that's a fun little way to add a drawback. I just want more ways to mitigate the potential of a fracture happen and have more ways to go about it.
So you want more kinds of crafting currency, right?
Yes, more kinds of crafting currency that do specific things, and they do the effect and not have 2 to 3 drawbacks. Like your next craft is going to have instability added, then it's also going to have moderate rolls tied to the weighting. Or like if you didn't know, old runes of removals used to target the highest tier stat.
Yeah.
Really?
Anytime you had an
Yes.
exalted item, it would break it automatically. It did not matter what you did.
Was that
it would
intended?
automatically break it.
Yes, it was intended.
What the hell?
That's what I
Why?
mean. EHG has actually has made systems where they weight certain things against what you want. And because of how they perceive it, how we as the player perceive it are very, very different. And so I want them to move away from these weighted systems that work against us and just give us more time investment to approach the craft, because I think taking my time to do a craft and making my choices and then screwing up because I made a bad decision is much more reasonable than I hit a button, I failed on a 91 because I was statistically against the system. I feel I have no control in that system. And I feel EHG needs to recognize that's what makes crafting feels bad. We, the player, don't have control.
Would you say that going up against a random system should be the punishment for being impatient?
Well, even if you're patient and you sit there and you stack all your resources and you farm out all the things for it, you can be as prepped as you want, but it's not going to change the fact that 80% is an 80% and
but you
1 out
want
of
that,
5.
you want like some kind of future system where it does change that, right?
Yeah, where I can
Gotcha, okay.
offset it in greater degrees.
So you can offset it by investing more time, and then if you want to bypass the time, then it's the gambly bit.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, risk versus reward. You risk it to get it done now, or you take the time and you look for the rare stuff to have a more guaranteed outcome. I think the time versus risk should be the choice made by the player, not am I going to get lucky today.
How do you feel about that? And so you've asked for a system where you can get like rarer glyphs or runes or something that help you target stuff better. How do you feel about that in an economy where there's multiplayer? Have you thought about that?
Yes, so if you think, I actually thought about Runes of Shattering actually being a tied currency because I thought it's very interesting that they have a set gold value and they're the only crafting currency with a set gold value of 2,000 gold. They want to make gold relevant. They could do so by using Runes of Shattering as a way to set the market value through gold buying. And so by having more rare runes and rare crafting resources that people want to engage with, through the bazaar, they can actually tie and sell certain crafting resources for gold value. So now gold has a purpose, and you want to go searching into those shops like the bazaar in hopes you find the rare crafting resources if you don't want to go and play for them. I think it would be a much better approach to tie crafting resources to gold amount because then you have a use for gold.
Deal. Yeah. But one of my complaints about Last Epoch for a while is like gold is like not particularly valuable, especially now that you can't gamble for unique items. Like there's posts on Reddit like almost every day. It's like I have 1,000,000 gold. What do I do? Well, buy stats.
Dash tabs.
Like nothing else.
Yeah.
We need something. Okay.
I keep hoping that they bring out like, and I've wanted this in this game for a while. I keep hoping that they bring something that only drops as a crafting material and empowered, where you can take a tier 5 and have a chance to increase it to a tier 6, or maybe take a tier 6 and increase it to a tier 7.
No.
I know they've said no several times, but I've hoped
Not,
for it.
as a player, I
it.
don't want that. It devalues the item hunt of finding that good exalt on a good base. I want to spend my time playing to look for an item, not spending my time hoping I got enough bases to attempt to craft, right? I think we should be spending more time looking for the uniques, looking for the rare exalts. But when we do finally get what we want, we should, as the player, be rewarded having crafting as our friend in our corner to have a better chance of getting the actual stats we want onto that item. By adding a resource that can just make exalts for you, it bypasses the whole reason why exalts are so appealing to begin with.
Well,
I'm
maybe
with you.
not 5 to a 6, but maybe a 6 to a 7 then, because it's already exalted if you find the drop. But I want it to be like ultra rare. Like I'm talking about if you play
Oh, no, I
every
get
single
that.
day, you might
But
only
that's
find like 3 in an entire like league.
But like
But-
ultra rare still means that in an economy, somebody will have one. You can just buy one.
yeah. You got to think about this from a perspective. If you make something ultra rare and you have 1,000,000 players, there's going to at least be about 10,000 of that resource on the market that you could go and find and never have to engage with finding it yourself.
Yeah, like,
It completely devalues the principle of it. And by making a resource like that where it goes from 6 to 7, you're devaluing the item hunt of looking in 90 plus areas in Empowered for the tier 7. Because why would I ever go to Empowered, go to 90 plus areas when I could just find a tier 6 at a lower map that I can farm more efficiently and then just upgrade it through a craft resource? It just defeats the whole purpose.
yeah, well, so
Good point.
we've all played trade leagues in PoE where the day or day after a league starts and there's, you know,
Yeah,
all the items you want.
I always hated that about the trade leagues.
Yeah,
It's like second day, somebody that's already boosted themselves all the way through the end game's already found like a really nice end game item, or got lucky and had a 6-link shadows drop.
Well, here's the other problem too: div cards and PoE. It makes things that shouldn't be accessible way accessible before you even have a chance to see the content. It also creates that power creep through market value, and I do like the bazaar in LE for the reason it's going to help mitigate that. But the problem is, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day when you have multiple players being able to interact with each other at some shape or form or fashion. There's going to be boosting, there's going to be extended drop rates. Like, if you think about it, we're going to have party play with instance drop. That means when you are playing with 3 other friends, you have 4 times the chance to find what you want because you can freely trade within a party. It's going to make party play way more efficient to do. It's going to make it way better, and it's going to defeat the whole principle of just drops and sharing with your friends and giving what you need, because it's like, well, if we just run this enough at 4 times the value, we're going to get what we need.
I think that's something that they said they want to avoid, isn't it? With party play, making party play more rewarding than solo play.
I mean, the thing is, like, what Quiet's talking about is something you can't avoid if you're going to have party trade, basically. So you either set it where you can't trade with party members, which is an ultimate feels bad that you should absolutely not do, or you just have to resign yourself to the fact that you have a 4x drop rate, basically.
Well, it's still 4 people's time, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, I want to address one thing. Man, it's like there's so many good things to talk about today.
True.
I disagree with something Quiet said, but I also don't like that I disagree with it. So it's a funny thing I'm about to say. I don't know what they're called, so I'm just going to describe what these rune things do. So there's the rune that rerolls the implicit.
Yeah.
Which Quiet you said you hate, and the rune that rerolls the implicit says it tries to get a more medium value. So
refinement does affix tiers, shaping does implicit.
Okay, so shaping. So the shaping one, like adds 1 to 2 stability or instability, and then it tries to it rerolls the implicit and it tries to give you a more medium roll. So getting a high roll on something is not particularly valuable. And then you also said you hate the scours. What are the scours called in this game? Cleansing?
Yeah. Rune cleansing.
Okay, so the cleansing, it's a good. I hate the strategy, but it's a good strategy if you want like a catalyst, for example. So a crit catalyst rolls between +2 spell crit, this is your base crit, up to +6 spell crit. And getting up to 6 spell crit is like absurdly strong.
Oh yeah, it's good.
It's like the best part of the catalyst is the implicit. Like you got some cast speed, you got some crit multi, who cares? But that +6 is super impactful. So you can gamble, and like if you get something that has a +6, you can cleanse it and then just start crafting on it. And the reason that cleansings are useful right now is that you can do that. You can like get the +6 and then you cleanse it, and then you craft a couple things on it, get up to like maybe tier.
But when you look at the gambles, how they gamble out with instability on it. In most cases, they don't go above 7, so the cleansing can actually offset it most of the time. It's very rare where the cleansing doesn't cover it because you get an 8 or a 9 and you low roll on like a 5 or a 6, and you're sitting at 98% value off your first craft. Right. It's still just worse than finding it in a monolith off a drop of 0.
So because the implicit modifiers in Last Epoch are so incredibly impactful, and I'll happily compare things over to Path of Exile. Path of Exile implicits not too important. There's a couple of niche cases, but so most of the time the implicit modifiers in Last Epoch are just like overwhelmingly more important. Just look at a Bone Amulet, for example. So getting something and then scouring it, getting something that has like garbage explicits but good implicits, and then cleansing it down is like a pretty good place to be. But I don't like that is a strategy. And the only reason it's a strategy is that the implicit rule, what's it called? You said shaping?
Yeah.
The shaping is fucking garbage. I am right there with you, Quiet. It's so bad.
It's terrible. It really is.
The worst.
And and the worst part is it's the rarest rune. Yeah. And it's the worst one.
If you use one shaping and you don't get what you want, the item's garbage. You have like one chance, one piece of RNG. Because if you don't get it, you have to use like 2 or 3 more, and then you're getting 2 instability each time, and then by the time you get the thing you want, you've removed like 2 potential guardian crafts because they're 5 instability.
Exactly.
Oh man, it's a feel bad moment. The implicits are so strong though, and like the catalyst example is like right where you want to be. I'm gonna cut off any responses from that because we need to move on, right? There's a lot of
okay.
You mentioned something that I don't know about it. You mentioned that the bazaar system is going to mitigate some of the downsides that that trading has in other action RPGs. I don't know how the bazaar system works. Tell me about it. What do we know about bazaar and how it's going to be working? And that's like how multiplayer trading is going to happen, right?
All right.
What can you tell me, Mr. Community Tester?
So, this is public knowledge. I could even link you directly to the article where it says exactly what I'm about to tell you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say it, but I'm going to preface it. Let me say it all first before you cut me off, because there's going to be some stuff I say that you guys are not going to like, period. So, how the bazaar system, from what we know off what the devs have told us through their multiplayer updates, is we're going to have the... so you know that in the end of time where you come in on that portal the first time, just out there you have that little area? Well, that area is going to be the bazaar area. And it's going to have random player shops there that you can find, and it's going to refresh those shops every X amount of time. And so... this is how you effectively trade with people outside your party. Is you go to the bazaar, you look in their store to see what they have, and it's completely random on what they could have and what stores you will get. And if they don't have anything you like, you gotta wait for it to reset or refresh with a new set of shops so you can search it again for items you want. And so by what this does is by limiting it to random shops appearing with random stuff in it, and there's only a limited number of shops you can see in this bazaar at any given time, you effectively have limited chances per however long they're going to do it for to see what you can actually trade with for gold. And how this limits a lot of the RMT drawbacks and boosting drawbacks is the only free form part of trade that we will have will be in-party trade with your friends. And you can only trade with your friends in a party if they were there while the item has dropped. Meaning, if your friend goes offline and you got something really poggies for them, you can't just give it to them. They literally would have to wait until your shop randomly appeared in their bazaar, and then hopefully someone else didn't get it before them and bought it with gold. And it's RNG trading. It's good because it stops the RNT, the botting, and stuff like that, but it's bad because your player interactions with other players per day is so limited that it almost feels like why bother.
I mean, it feels like a flea market, right?
It's exactly what it is a flea market.
Oh.
Sounds interesting, but I don't think I'm going to be partaking of the bizarre, considering the fact that group play sounds right up my alley now. After talking about having 4 times, drop rate and then being able to trade instantly with the person if you're in party with them, that sounds like the better choice is just to play with the group.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely.
Same thing with PoE. Way PoE
So,
went.
so effectively, the bazaar strat is while you're waiting for your homies to get on to go play, you just go check your bazaar to see what there is. If there's anything good, great. If there's not, oh well, you didn't waste any time.
Right.
It's quite literally like trading with the merchant in town, right?
Yep.
Except that there could be an exalted item.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Or if you're really lucky, you get 4 new players with all their trash items because they're new to the game, just flooding your bazaar, and you just see white and blues of crap that is irrelevant.
There's gonna be posts on Reddit telling people, "Yo, stop posting garbage in your bazaar."
Yep.
There's gonna be new player hate, isn't there?
100%.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, there's gonna be people yelling at inexperienced people like, "Stop posting these items. Stop." Yeah. Huh. Interesting. I wonder how that's gonna play out.
I
Weird.
don't know. I've always told EHE I'll give anything a try, but I've told them up front it's bad. It's just bad in principle of design and theory. But they want to give it a go. I'll let them have their fair shake. They've surprised me before. I just don't think this is going to be a case where they surprise me.
Huh.
We will see.
It's so weird. Like I'm so used to Path of Exile, just like pathofexile.com/trade/buy whatever.
Yeah, but like even Diablo 3 has better trade than the Bazaar, unironically.
I can't say it on that. I have no idea what trading looks like in
I don't see how it has better trading, considering the fact you have to be in the party with the person whenever it drops. It's the same thing as party play.
Yeah, but the difference is a D3, once you get your set, you don't need items that drop anymore. It's
True.
great.
I mean, so I spent these past couple days in the Vision GL tournament playing Beastmaster, Serpent Strike, and I felt like for the most part my gear just didn't matter. Like my gear had like res on it and like maybe some Viper Strike effect. Or some,
this is the other. I agree with you. What you just said, gear doesn't matter. It effectively doesn't. We get so much power out of our mastery trees, out of our skills. Gear is just there as a supplementary to solve things that our character doesn't inherently get. And that's part of the reason why crafting to endgame doesn't even feel good, and it's why trade won't feel good. It's because you don't need anything unless it's a unique or like what's going to be a legendary coming to the game. We don't know what that prefaces. Unless you need a specific thing that enables your build, you don't need gear in LE because the game ain't hard enough to require it in most cases. The only reason why we use gear is so we could push as hard as we can to get the content where it's actually hard.
All right, what's the next thing on the list there, Perry?
All right, so we're at 58 right now. We're almost at the top of the hour. So I'm gonna go with this, okay? How about we know like a tiny bit about the dungeon, so I don't want to touch on that. But how about the Eternity Cache? So the Eternity Cache is gonna be they've said hold on to your exalted items that have good affixes. You'll want them. That's the one line of text that I know about Eternity Cache. I don't think the community knows anything beyond that, do we?
I know a lot more because I know that this.
So I guess this is a question for Grim and for Squid here, but like, what is something that you think Eternity Cache is going to be? I like. Is it going to be like cubing an item from D3?
So
I am clueless on it.
That was my initial thought. Is I thought it was cube from Diablo 3 when it says hold on to your exalted items that have good affixes, you'll want them. Because the cube in D3 was you put an item in there, you extract it, and now you have whatever you extracted as a passive power. Now, they say Eternity Cache is tied into legendary items. My brain starts turning gear-wise and thinks, what if you can use it to put to basically kind of make your own custom legendary items.
What if you could like take 2 exalted modifiers and like bloop, put them together?
Right.
Like a new 3rd item.
Something.
Sounds so good.
It sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds like a percentage-based game that will make me angry, much like the crafting system.
I might have to temper you,
the crafting
boys.
system, as it turns out, is fun and rewarding. The crafting system is fun and rewarding. The crafting system is fun and rewarding. Perfect. All right.
Fracture.
All right, and on that note, guys, that's going to do it for us here at Last Week of Epoch. We'd like to thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you guys catch us again next Tuesday, and if you missed it, you can always find this loaded up on YouTube and also on Anchor and Spotify, guys. From all of us here at Last Week of Epoch, thanks, guys, and have a good night.